National Statuary Hall back to hopefully a tourist area. You know, inaugural luncheons, what is it about food that there seems to be an agreement about food? We can disagree about a lot of things, but when it comes to food, it's generally the last inauguration for President Trump, he had 200 guests. Mm-hmm. So looking at the tables, which hold about 7 or 8 people, that's kind of online with that. I know you talked about statues just briefly, and
ladies and gentlemen,
at
this
here we
time,
go.
please rise for the introduction of the official party.
Introduction of the official party. Okay.
Please welcome members of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Mike Johnson, accompanied by Mrs. Johnson, Senate Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles Schumer, accompanied by Mrs. Weinschall Schumer, House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steve Scalise, accompanied by Mrs. Scalise, and House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries. Please remain standing for the honors and the invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the Vice President of the United States, ranking member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer and Mr. Fischer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance, accompanied by Mrs. Vance. Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the President of the United States, the Chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar and Mr. Bessler. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump and Mrs. Trump.
I have a feeling people are very hungry, so I'm going to get this started. Mr. President and Madam First Lady, Mr. Vice President and Madam Second Lady, my colleague Senator Fischer, distinguished guests including the Speaker, Leader Jeffries, and Senate Leaders Thune and Schumer, on behalf of the United States Congress, welcome to the 60th inaugural lunch Big surprise, we are featuring Nebraska beef and Minnesota apples for dessert. We are here in Statuary Hall, where these luncheons have taken place since President Reagan's first inauguration in 1981, and where the House of Representatives once met over 150 years ago. That would be before you were born, Mr. Speaker. In 1864, after the new House wing of the Capitol was built, and in the midst of the Civil War, Congress dedicated this chamber to host statues chosen by every state. Walking into the hall, we all passed under the arch, holding the marble Car of History clock. The statue shows Cleo, the Greek muse of history, holding a book to record events as they happen. And as you can see, she's heard a lot of stuff. And as she rides her chariot forward into the future, she looks behind her to remember the past. She remains here as she has for hundreds of years, a reminder that history will remember the events of the present, and it is on us to write that history right now. Speaking of art, the painting right here before you, I chose this painting for this lunch this summer, and it's titled American Horizon. It's by Jane Wilson, who grew up on her family farm in Seymour, Iowa. Coming from the middle of our country, Senator Fisher and I both liked the painting because the artist is from America's heartland, but the horizon could easily be Florida, Mr. President. I will also note that this is the first time in history we are featuring the work of a woman artist at this lunch, and we thank the Art Institute of Chicago for their assistance. Looking at the vast open landscape of this painting, we're drawn to the bottom of the frame where the land or the water, depending on where you're from, meets the sky, and the horizon endures. The enduring horizon is especially meaningful for us today as we mark our enduring democracy as we approach its 250th anniversary. It's a reminder that what's over the horizon is our next chapter, and it is my prayer that the people in this room can write that chapter together. I'd now like to ask U.S. Senate Chaplain Dr. Barry Black, and we thank God he is back with us and in good health, to deliver the invocation, after which lunch will be served. Thank you.
Let us pray. King of kings and Lord of lords, whose kingdom is above all earthly kingdoms, and who judges all lesser sovereignties, look with favor upon President Donald John Trump and Vice President James David Vance. Empower them with the wisdom and courage needed for our times. Protect them from the vicissitudes and challenges that obstruct the making of a world of justice, peace, and righteousness. Lord, give them a deep desire to do their best for our country and world, and a determination to act in ways pleasing to you. Preserve their families in health and strength by your grace and power. Bless now this luncheon as each of us finds your grace sufficient for every need. We pray in your sovereign name. Amen.
Well, that was Senator Klobuchar and the Senate's chaplain who gave a little bit of a welcome to the luncheon. I wanted to mention something in particular. Did you notice the podium that they used was different than the others?
I did not.
Well, there is a Rhode Island connection to this podium, and since my husband is from Rhode Island, I feel like I must say that this was a gift. Well, no, it's not a gift. It's loaned from the Daughters of the American Revolution national headquarters here in Washington, D.C. They've been doing it for almost 20 years, and it was originally given to them by a Rhode Island chapter. So it's got a very ornate eagle on the front. And so that's a little nod. That was for my husband.
The first state to bring to us a statue.
Oh, it was Rhode
Rhode
Island.
Island. Nathaniel Green, whose daughter is named after Martha Washington. I want to say something about Chaplain Barry Black's
yes,
voice.
please.
There are a lot of noted voices in history, congressional history. Members of the House and Senate, other than that, Chaplain Black has to have one of the best voices one has ever heard. It just, I don't know how to describe it. It's more than soothing. It's more than powerful. Oh, it just the moment he opens his mouth, you listen to every word. You mentioned the painting by Jane Wilson. In that room used to be two paintings of the Marquis de Lafayette. That's the best I can do. I don't speak
That was
French.
pretty good.
And George Washington, of course. Where are they now? In the new House chamber. So
I was really happy to hear that Senator Klobuchar also mentioned my favorite sculpture in the entire building because it's about history, and that's what we do, right?
Cleo or Clio. I won't be critical if you say Cleo. Oh, and the chariot, you'll have to come and visit or look at the website. What caricature is on the chariot? George Washington. He is everywhere. My goodness, people must, 2:30 and they're having lunch.
Yeah, they must be hungry.
They're not alone.
But we have a treat. We have a treat for you right now. We've been talking a lot about music,
Yes.
right? And including the president's own Marine Band. And so we're going to watch a video to talk some more about them. So let's watch that now.
I'm looking forward to this segment.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Nowlin, and I'm the 29th Director of the President's own United States Marine Band. Formed by an act of Congress in 1798, it's been the Marine Band's mission to provide music for the President of the United States, a stewardship dating back to the presidency of John Adams and the inauguration of Thomas Jefferson thereafter. The Marine Band's role in a presidential inauguration not only includes the swearing-in ceremony, but performances in the inaugural parade and the traditional inaugural balls as well. Before the swearing-in ceremony takes place at the U.S. Capitol, the Marine Band provides a musical prelude to set the tone and capture the spirit of the moment, playing a variety of inspiring American selections. The music will continue as distinguished guests, former presidents, former vice presidents, and family members make their way to their seats. Once the event is officially underway, music plays a central and important role in marking this historic, peaceful transfer of power.
As soon as the oath of office is complete, the Marine Band is the first to announce the new president by playing Hail to the Chief. This song has been associated with the President of the United States since the early 19th century. In fact, the Marine Band started playing Hail to the Chief unofficially for the President, beginning with our 8th President, Martin Van Buren. Shortly thereafter, First Lady Julia Tyler, wife of President John Tyler, began to request that the Marine Band play Hail to the Chief when her husband entered the room as an official announcement. President James Polk continued that tradition throughout his presidency.
Interestingly, this ceremony is the only time you will hear Hail to the Chief rendered twice. First for the outgoing president, and again for the new president, immediately following the oath of office.
In 1954, Hail to the Chief was officially designated as musical honors for the president, and this musical announcement for the president continues today. It's a great honor for the Marine Band to be the first to render musical honors for the new Commander-in-Chief.
Following the inaugural address, benediction, and national anthem, the Marine Band traditionally brings this festive occasion to a close with John Philip Sousa's most famous march, our national march, The Stars and Stripes Forever. It remains an honor for the United States Marine Band to be a steward of our country's musical traditions, and we look forward to once again being a part of this revered moment in our nation's history.
Well, that was really interesting to hear about the perspective of a military band, about participating in these ceremonies and how important it is for the music and the words to match, right? And we've, like we said, we've listened to a lot of great music today.
I'm going to be, look out, a little biased. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay, love the Marine Band. Emily and I tour students. When high school bands come to us, they are so easy to work with. They are wonderful. And what are they here for? Our Memorial Day concert, 4th of July concert. We've seen marching bands come to us the week of Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, and they make their way here up to New York City. There is another band to talk about.
Yes, we're going to talk about the Coast Guard Band next. The Coast Guard Band is based in New London, Connecticut at the Coast Guard Academy, and let's watch a little bit about them.
My name is Captain Adam Williamson. I am the director of the United States Coast Guard Band, which was formed in 1925 by John Philip Sousa and the conductor at the time of the New York Philharmonic, Walter Damrosch. The Coast Guard Band is the one and only band of the United States Coast Guard, and we have the great honor and privilege of sharing the Coast Guard story with Americans all around the country and people all around the globe. The Coast Guard Band has performed on every continent except for Antarctica. So this year, 2025, marks the centennial of the United States Coast Guard Band. The Coast Guard Band is 55 members and performs in ceremonial and concert settings. And we have performed for every inauguration since Herbert Hoover's in 1929. This year, we'll be supporting the inaugural luncheon with a brass quintet that will provide background music as guests arrive, but they'll also support that event with the official arrivals. One of the most famous pieces of music for arrivals is Hail to the Chief, the presidential honors. However, a lesser-known piece of music is Hail Columbia. Composed by Philip Fyle, Hail Columbia was originally called Washington's March, which was performed for President Washington in 1798. And it was actually widely considered our unofficial national anthem until 1931, when the Star-Spangled Banner showed up. In 1969, Hail Columbia became the official vice presidential honors music, and that is a tradition that we continue today.
I mean, I love hearing about this stuff. So that was also just a great moment to hear about what goes into producing some of what we saw already today, and how the traditions and the music, they reach far back. Speaking of tradition, one of the traditions is that we hang flags at the Capitol building that have special meaning. In this case, special meaning to the president. So you may have noticed the middle flag in this array is the flag you're used to seeing. It's the 50-star flag. And then on the ends, that one you might also be used to seeing. We've got the flag with the 13 stars and 13 stripes, the so-called Betsy Ross flag. I think if you've been to any kind of celebration, certainly growing up in New England, we saw that flag a lot because Massachusetts is one of the original 13 colonies, right? But then if you go just to the left or to the right, we've got this other flag with 27 stars. And that one is to represent the 27th state of the Union, which is Florida, which is the president's home state. So that one is a nod to the new president, returning president, President Trump.
You mentioned President Trump's birthday is on Flag Day.
My birthday as well.
I did, as long as I've known you, I did not know that. June 14th is President Trump's birthday. It's on Flag Day. I mentioned this earlier. I want to do this again. The flags that you just saw, there was a large Flag Day ceremony in 1929. The flag was 90 by 175 feet from a department store called Hudson's in Detroit, Michigan. This was under the leadership of Vice President Curtis from the state of Kansas. They marched it from the White House. And it was a hot day. Down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol, right? The 1920s, right? Let the good times roll, what have you. Of course, that would change shortly, but great view of our West Front. A real quick trivia question. I mentioned about fireplaces. There are 144 in the building, less than 20. Here's one for you. Mm-hmm. How many rooms are in the Capitol? Now, you're going to jump off the deep end right away, so I'm going to give you 3 options, okay? Okay. 540, 440, 640. How many rooms are in the Capitol? 440, 540, or 640?
It's 540.
540 rooms in the Capitol, yes.
Someone once asked me how many doorknobs were in the Capitol. I don't know the answer to that question.
That's homework tonight. I'll know by dinner time tonight. Well, Government Printing Office, GPO, that's a familiar acronym in Washington, D.C., and frankly to the region. Well, we have a video, and let's find out more about the impact of the Government Printing Office.
So GPO has been producing materials for all 3 branches of government really since the Civil War. We do everything from Congress's daily work to making sure that the data from Congress and the judiciary and the executive branch is all available online and available to our customers. If a member of Congress decides to write a bill on the back of a legal pad, we have to take that and make that available as data in addition to the printed output. We've got about 1,650 folks here who work at GPO, and they run the gamut from people who are artisanal bookbinders who use the handmade techniques that have been in use for 1,000 years, all the way to cutting-edge software developers. And we have partners all over the country, all 50 states, most of the territories. GPO started its work with the Joint Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies about a year ago, talking about requirements and designs and things like that. And GPO supports all of the printed materials that the inauguration requires. And it's a whole breadth of things. It's everything from the invitations to the tickets to security items like vehicle placards or maps or signage or all of those kinds of things. We work very closely with the Capitol Police to make sure that those documents are secure, they can't be counterfeited, and that their personnel can make sure that that's a genuine ticket when they're reviewing it. It's a pretty big job, pretty big order. I can tell you from personal experience, my wife has a set of inauguration tickets from when my son was only 8 years old, and they're framed in his bedroom. So we recognize that these are keepsakes that people want to keep for a very, very long time. And we want to make sure that we're delivering that quality of a product, the kind of almost heirloom product that you can't get every place else. The inauguration is one of those things that happens every 4 years, but each one is unique. And even in a case like this one where a former president is coming back, it's different. Being that part of history, every single time you're facilitating that peaceful transfer of power, and you're making sure that that we're recognizing it with the gravitas that the moment requires. All of these things are important to us, and I think that's why all of us here at GPO enjoy what we do and view it as something important to what the nation does.
I just love that video about the GPO. And I think one of the things that he said that I would like to echo is how many people are just, it's almost a number too big to imagine how many people are working behind the scenes for an event like today, and how much pride everyone takes in making sure that everything works the way it should. We were talking earlier about the agency we work for, the architect of the Capitol, and all of the work they had to do for today. But even down to the details of the programs, and everything has to be just right, and people take a lot of pride in doing that.
They're having lunch in National Statuary Hall, the Old House Chamber, right now. Those cards on the table, the menu, the gifts, everything related to paper, government printing office. How many times has that been looked over and over, the oversight of that? The video mentioned that a year out, they're notified and they start working on it. That's a lot of pressure. The delivery of it.
That's a big order.
You know someone is in that truck or whatever vehicle they use, it probably has, a Secret Service agent. I'm not exaggerating, to make sure it doesn't go anywhere to get to the Capitol. It is, 200,000 tickets issued. There's probably half that of people associated with this inauguration.
Right, and the tradition of the inauguration is just so important. And Senator Klobuchar has talked about this, and I think that we have a little video to watch of her speaking about tradition and inaugural ceremonies. So let's watch that.
The peaceful transfer of power is at the heart of our democracy. It reaffirms that ours is and always will be a government of, by, and for the people. The inaugural ceremonies are one of our most iconic traditions, where we recognize our democracy and the sacred values that tie us together in front of millions of people across the country and around the globe. The tradition of the inaugural ceremonies at the Capitol dates back to when Thomas Jefferson took office in the old Senate chamber in 1801. It was almost 8 years after President George Washington first laid the cornerstone of the building in 1793, and only one wing of the building had been completed at the time. Over time, the ceremony was moved to the east side of the building and later to the west front for President Ronald Reagan's inauguration in 1981. Through the years, our dedication to the continuity of our government has remained the same, and today we carry the torch forward yet again. The inaugural ceremonies are the culmination of nearly 250 years of our great American experiment in democracy. Our founding fathers intended for the stability of the country to be rooted in the will of the people. Whether or not our candidate wins, we as a nation recognize that when the president-elect raises his right hand and takes the inaugural oath of office, that signifies the peaceful transfer of power. That's what this ceremony is all about. Since George Washington was sworn in as our first president in 1789, the inaugural ceremonies have taken place every 4 years through times of peace, prosperity, and adversity. Today, we gather at the Capitol, a beacon of freedom, to fulfill the Constitution's promise to protect our enduring democracy for generations to come.
175 years ago, one former senator and Secretary of State summarized the theme of our 2025 presidential inauguration. He said, "The Constitution of the United States was made not merely for the generation that then existed, but for posterity, unlimited, undefined, endless, perpetual posterity." Our Constitution established this country as a shining city upon a hill, the first nation founded upon an idea. Our Constitution realized the founders' vision of a government striving to protect each person's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our Constitution revolutionized America. It revolutionized the world. It was the first of its kind. In many ways, our Constitution was for the generation who wrote it, but more than that, it was for the generations that followed. It is for us today, and it is for our descendants, the generations that will follow us. The Constitution enshrined our inalienable God-given rights. It immortalized America's commitment to justice and to liberty for all, and the democracy that keeps those ideals alive. After all, the Constitution begins with we the people. Today's inauguration continues the traditions that have upheld our nation and its peaceful transfer of power for almost 2.5 centuries. The theme of the 60th inaugural ceremonies is Our Enduring Democracy, a constitutional promise. Like I said earlier, that theme was described 175 years ago, a decade before the Civil War. But most significantly, it was described at our founding. It is described in our very own Constitution, established to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. This 60th inauguration, only the second time a president has been sworn in for a second time, marks another milestone in securing those blessings for ourselves and the generations to come. May we not forget the rich significance of our peaceful transfer of power today. And may today renew our commitment to the American Constitution